Welcome to the What to Expect While Fostering and Adopting podcast show. If you're a foster mom, on the journey to adoption, already adopted, or somewhere in the middle, trying to figure out how to navigate the foster care system, wanting to grow your family through adoption, trying to balance everything, or stuck in that space of all things unknown, you're in the right place. What if there was a way to fast track your knowledge, prepare you for the good and the hard, and somebody who could answer that long list of questions I know you have? Hi friend, I'm Christine Marie, biblical mindset coach, adoptive mom, and previous foster parent of 77 children. Yep, you heard that right, 77 kiddos. I'm your host, and my goal is to help make your journey a lot easier by sharing my best tools, techniques, and skills that helped me pivot from foster care to adoption, fully surrender, and trust the process. I'm about to bring some calm to the chaos and show you how to navigate through this journey with a whole lot of grace. So go grab your cup of coffee and let's jump in. I'm so excited. Today we have a special guest, Cynthia Nash, who's with us today to share exactly what she does. And foster mamas, adoptive mamas, and dads, this is an episode that you are going to want to make sure that you save to listen to at a time when the kids are busy and you can fully pour in, because what she's going to share with you is not only going to be cost saving, but it's going to be generational breaking for your children and their lives and future generations. So lovingly, we can call her and reference her Cindy, because she is now part of the What to Expect While Fostering and Adopting family. So Cindy, I'm so excited to welcome you. If you could tell our audience exactly what it is that you do, who you help and serve. And I love that you love Jesus and he is the forefront and center of your business and what you do.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. So I am an independent college admissions and financial aid coach. And I also help a great deal with helping students get scholarships. I have over 22 years experience at Northwestern and Vanderbilt universities. I left there and there were some personal circumstances that happened that required me to go out on my own. And I do this independently. My company is Amazing Journey College Counseling, because I believe every journey to college should be amazing.
I love that. And especially I think if we adopt kiddos from hard places, and I say hard places because I feel like anytime a child is separated from their original family of origin, that's a hard thing. Usually one of the first areas that children struggle with is education. Us foster moms, adoptive moms, when I was a foster parent before, it was like, let's figure out how to help this child understand, because when we're dealing with suppressed emotions, living in fight or flight, all of the trauma that comes with being a foster child or being removed from your family of origin, education is really hard because all the emotions are what take the front seat. So I love when you and I were talking previously, we were talking about how you can really help these foster families or adoptive families set their child up for success. So what would look like somebody would come to you, tell me kind of what that intake process looks like, or how you would help a family just from like soup to nuts, front to end.
Great. So first of all, in addition to raising 3 sons of my own, I now have 14 grandkids. And so I do coach them to college also. But let me just describe this a little bit more. So I have clients who are able to pay me fully. And then I also work with first generation, socioeconomically challenged, and sometimes homeless students who need this same help, and they certainly deserve it. And they pay me a whole different amount or nothing. And the reason this matters is that it changes the future of the family for generations. And so when many of my students come from backgrounds where they have been abused, where I have terrible stories of children who have been abused and how that looked like where they were coming from. But when I coach them, because I'm a Christian coach, I pour into them the ethics, the values, but most importantly, the vision of a future. Because unfortunately, I have found that if students cannot see a future, many times they end up not having a future. I literally had a student say, well, I didn't write the draft for my essay because I did not intend to still be here.
Wow.
Yes, and because I work under the Federal Protection of Minors Act, I immediately questioned her and said, "What are you saying?" Because I have to react to that. But fast forward, she was fine. We worked with her. She had an amazing essay. So when somebody comes to me, the first thing I do is I find out grades because grades matter. Test
Right.
scores are important, but it's grades that matter. And you, as the parents, have the ability to change a child's vision of what that looks like. My own household, I had three very gifted children academically, but the middle son had learning disabilities. He was a gifted learning disabled student. And many times when that shows up is junior year in high school. He
Okay.
made straight A's before then without trying. Okay. He never had to open a book. He was fine. But junior year, he crashed and burned. Those kids need our help. When a child is overcoming the trauma that many of these foster children have lived through, they have to be treated differently in the process. And that's where having someone like me matters because I know the questions to ask. I know how to give them that vision and the dream, but so do you. And what that looks like is spring break. Let's go visit a college. Do you understand why going to college is something I want you to do? I have had students whose parents, because of the trauma the child had gone through, wanted them to stay very, very close to home. And this was a fostered student. And I tried to give them the vision that it's okay to let them go because you get 4 years to grow. And as long as they're in a safe space, and many schools work very hard, especially Christian schools, to ensure that, then they are going to grow because guess what? After those 4 years, they are adults. They have to start adulting or stepping into their adult life. And we want to empower them to have every single tool they need to be successful as adults, right? I have
Yeah.
a program that I also coach that helps those adults that don't do that launch. But we want them to be empowered before that so that they can have a successful life into adulthood. Now, back to the student process. When they come to me, I first find out what they're passionate about. And you want to tap into your child's passion because there's never one career for any passion, right? And
Mhm.
there are programs in this country that you need to know about. One of them that I've had tremendous success with is QuestBridge. QuestBridge is an organization that is a nonprofit that if your family's income is $65,000 or less, you can apply going into senior year through their college application program. If they choose you, you can then be matched to one of the top schools in this country where your child will go for free. I have four
So
students going to
incredible.
yeah, I have four students going to Vanderbilt next year. Vanderbilt costs $400,000 for 4 years. That is the total cost. They each got a $400,000 scholarship. They are going to Vanderbilt for 4 years for free. I have another one going to Johns Hopkins for free, number six school in the country. And a lot of my students are engineering students, pre med students, but I also have lots who just want to go to school, want to be in business, want to be an entrepreneur. And that vision comes from the parents. And even though they have struggled in their past, instilling in them the dream that you have an amazing future matters. And I spend hours doing that with students. And the reason these kids get into great schools is that they have a story that no one else has. They have survived insurmountable odds
Right.
many times.
Right.
I have a proprietary essay writing system. I don't know why kids talk to me, but they do. And I get them to tell their story. I basically say, excuse this word, but I basically say, I want you to vomit the story on the
Yeah.
page. An essay is 650 words. I tell them, I don't care if it's 3,500 because we will boil it down and make it amazing.
Right.
I help them. I work one on one with my students on their essays. I am setting up a new group coaching program where we can go through those basic things together. But when it comes to the essays, they will work with me one on one, as my current students do, because the stories are very private.
Right.
It's a fiduciary relationship when you work with a college admissions coach. And so the only people that read that essay, and parents, this is hard sometimes, just saying, unless you're going to school with them, you don't need to be involved in their essay. They have to learn to write on their own. That's my hard, fast rule. The only people that see that essay are the student and me, and then whoever the admissions officer is. And the reason for that is it gives students the freedom and the autonomy to tell their story. After they're done, after they submit it, then they share it because they're going to college and we have to honor that. We have to let them know we trust them and we trust them with their story. I actually had somebody go in and edit their child's essay just before it was to be submitted. It happened to be someone close to me that did that. And I just said, "Why did you do that?" And the person said, "Because the details were wrong." Those were the details in that person's view from the outside looking in.
Right.
We don't have the right to change a child's story because they lived it. I was talking to a guidance counselor in Texas who demanded that he read every single child's essay. And I said, "You know what? It is their intellectual property."
Right.
It's kind of like when students choose to color their hair, like purple and green. And I said, "Why do you do that to one of my students?" And she said, "Quite frankly, it is all I can control.
Mm.
I get to do my hair the color I want."
Right.
And I honor that, you
Right.
know? And so when a child is telling their story, be them eighth graders, fifth graders, ninth graders, even though our perspective of what they went through may be different, we have to honor their version of that story. And this guidance counselor in Texas said, "I made her change it because I know the family and that wasn't correct." And
Mm.
I said, "In whose opinion? Were you there? Did you sleep in that house? What, how do you know? Do you even ask permission before you read their work? You don't have the right to do this." And I think that when we as parents come to terms with the fact that we need to allow our children some independence of thought as they're planning their future, we grow tremendously, first of all, as parents, because we're respectful of them in a unique and different way. But we also allow them the freedom to tell their story without parental edits.
Well, it's
And it
interesting that you said that because I think the previous version of me, and I'm saying previous like a year ago, would have said, like, "Oh, that's how previous." I think I would have said I would have disagreed with you.
right,
And I would have said, I mean, coming from a place where I've spent a lot of time healing and working through control, which I think control is straight from the pits of hell. And
right.
that is not a
With you.
fruit of the that's not a fruit of the spirit. But when you're in a situation when your kids are emotionally struggling and making the household because of their emotions complete in chaos, you want to control something because that's the only way as a
Right.
parent you're surviving. But now looking at it and thinking through what you're sharing, I think it's a beautiful opportunity because there are some things that both my girls remember that aren't actually true. And so they've told me things, and I'm like, never happened. Not even one chance
Right.
on the planet Earth did that ever happen. That's not part of your story. You do not remember that happening because it just didn't. But it's what has been programmed in their mind. It's the memory that they have. But the thing is that that's given us this opportunity to say, well, tell me about where you got that memory. Tell me when you think that that happened. Let's walk through this. And
Right.
so, like, I'm like, okay, I can see why you do this because they are sharing their journey. No matter
Right.
how true, false, right, or wrong, our brain doesn't care. Just from a neuroscience perspective, our brain doesn't care if something's true, false, right, wrong, black, white. If somebody told you a pickle was purple and that's all you've ever known about pickles, that it's purple, it's purple. And so just because they remember something, like if they're sharing their story, I think them sharing it after also gives another opportunity for healing
Right.
and to have these discussions like, and I think even coming from a perspective of trying to control to going from, if you remember something that actually didn't happen, that's actually not true, which I'm sure this
Right.
doesn't happen all the time, right? But just in those instances, and moms or dads who are listening to this going, no, I would want to listen to it because that was me last year, or I'd want to read it. No, we need to fix it. We need to make sure that whatever's submitted is 100% accurate. Well, that is just another opportunity for healing. It's another opportunity for relationship. It's another opportunity for intimacy and closeness and giving our children the ability to share their story without us parents controlling it and trying to fix it. And it's a very big first step to independence.
Correct. And, I was that controlling parent
Yeah.
with my oldest, and I went to his counseling session at his high school with his high school counselor the summer before senior year. And he looked at me, and I was a control freak. I was married to a severe alcoholic. And so I had to make sure everything looked right because no one knew what was going on in our house.
Right.
And so we were the perfect Christmas card, the whole 9 yards because
Yeah.
it would harm his business. And so I made sure that my sons had all the things, everything was right. And this counselor said to me, the high school counselor said, I just have to ask you something. Are you going to college with your son?
Wow.
And I said, well, no, of course not. And he said, then let him go. This
Mm,
is his year to learn how to navigate all the rules that aren't going to be there in college. So maybe you changed from having a curfew to call me at this time and let me know you're safe so I know what's going on and where you are. Now we have 360, right? So we can always see where our kids are. We have air tags so we can see where they are. Back when my son was a senior, that didn't exist, but we had the rule. And then this counselor went on to say, "You're not going to be there to do writing with him in college, so this is the year to let him learn how to do all of these without your monitoring every move he makes." Now I understand because my middle son was the gifted LD student. He had many issues and life was different. There was chaos in our household because of his what he was going through. There were many challenges with what he was going through. He did have ADHD. He had a nonverbal learning disability. He had an organizational disability that we never saw coming. And so he struggled because his father had different demands. And It was a very hard time for our family. But through that, I learned that when we give that slightest amount of autonomy, write your story. I'm
Yeah.
not going to touch it. I'm not going to read it. It's yours. If you want me to read it, then show it to me when you and Coach Cindy get it done.
Right.
That's a whole different level of respect to
Right.
that child, but also a maturity from the parent and the child.
Right. And
And
I
it,
think it also
yeah,
sets them up for like an adult relationship, which is a really big bridge. Like where you're going next is adulthood. And it gives them a glimpse into what the future could look like.
right. And when that counselor said that to me, I went home in a big huff. I'm like, who do you think you are telling me I
Yeah.
can't tell my child what to do? What do you mean? He has no rules. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I was freaking out. And then
Yeah.
I realized I had a talk with that person in the mirror.
Mm.
I realized he was 100% right.
Yeah.
And so when I explained to parents, you're not allowed to see the essay unless your child gives it to you, you'd be astounded the number of parents that find the password, that go into the laptop, that read the essays. Why is an essay so intimidating to us parents that we can't let our child, or what are we afraid of? What are we afraid they're saying? I
Right.
assure you, most of the times, it's not about the parent. It's about a kid at school, or in the case of foster parents, something that happened in a different household,
Right.
or what they have survived, what they truly have been through. And I was a professional speechwriter and I coach public speaking. And so I took the methodology of amazing speeches and I converted it to writing. So I help these students start with that incredible hook so that the student gets to start with that and then build backwards. But also, the admission officer reads that first. They have to read to find out what happened. Because I worked on the college side for over 22 years, I know that you've got 5 seconds. And if you haven't grabbed their attention in 5 seconds, they're just like, oh, and that's it. And at the big schools now, if you don't have the test scores and the grades, they're looking literally at the first paragraph and they're done.
So, one thing that you mentioned, and I know the essay is a really big portion of it, but that just blew me away is that so typically children who are raised, grown up in foster care, some who age out of the system, some who are adopted, like the maximum capacity for a job income per year isn't always fantastic. And so when I look at that four of your students got a $400,000 free ride to Vanderbilt because they partnered with you, because their parents felt like this is so important. Like, I just want to take a minute and put that in perspective because very often it's average to graduate from high school, and if especially with a foster care adoption background, and I'm not saying that in any negative way, but just that
Right.
children who are coming from harder places to make $40,000 a year would be wonderful, which is why there are so many two-parent households required to work at this time. But if you just do the math, $40,000 a year for an income, that would be 10 years of income. 10 years
Yes.
of income for this child, adult, to even attend at a school like this. And they would have been required, which I don't even know if student loans cover $400,000, but that amount of burden on a child exiting the college system, going into the work, if they're making whatever it is that they're leaving, high school with, they're earning
Right.
that's 10 years of working, and that wouldn't even be possible for them because you can't pay your full amount that you're earning to go to college. Like, you
Right.
can't do that. So,
And then right,
and that's
right.
just literally, like, when I'm thinking about the generational impact on that, I mean, that's Holy Spirit collapsed time frame work that you're doing.
Oh,
And
thank you. Well, yeah.
just
And God
amazing.
made me do this, you guys, just to be clear. So when I worked at Vanderbilt, the Holy Spirit kept saying, quit work. I don't want you to work here. I want you to help students. I want you coaching kids. And I kept saying, well, Lord, I don't know what you're looking at. I've got a mortgage. I have bills. What are you thinking? On the way home from Vanderbilt one day, I got rear ended on the interstate, had a
Wow.
terrible concussion that had post concussive syndrome for like 5 or 6 years. And the Holy Spirit immediately said, now are you going to do what I'm asking you to do? You can't do that job anymore. And
Wow.
I was let go from that job while I was on medical leave. And then it was like, oh my goodness, I really have to do what God asked me to do because I that's what I'm an expert at. But here's what I want to say about what you just said. And that is having somebody help your child go to school matters. But most importantly, it matters the words you say. What I hear from a lot of parents in households where there have been challenges is, I didn't go away to school. Why do they have to go to school? I went to the local community college. Why can't they just go to the local community college? There is nothing wrong with that. I understand it. I will help them get there. But why not? Just why not give them the vision
Mhm.
of shooting for the moon, even if they're going to hit a star? There are students going, most of my students get over $100,000 in scholarships. There is aid for low income families now that never existed in the past,
Right.
ever. There are programs across this country. There's the Posse program. I also have a student going to Middlebury next year for free. Middlebury is in New England. It's an amazing school. They're going for free. I have a student going to a combined MD program starting as a freshman in college. She is going to free it for free because she's going to be a doctor in New Mexico and help diabetics that so they won't suffer the way she has. These kids have a purpose and they have a reason for choosing what they're going to do next. They want to make a difference in this world like you, their foster parents, have made to them in their life.
So
Oh,
the Bible verse, it reminded me of Habakkuk 2:2, which I pulled it up because I'm like, I wanna make sure I get every word right. It says, "And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that he may run who reads it." That's exactly what we have this as an opportunity as adoptive and foster parents is help
right,
them see a vision.
right. And that vision is what they will strive for. And no matter what they have been through, if they want to be in technical school, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Many times they're going to make more money than if they do something else. But I will tell you this clearly. It is my goal when I work with a student that they are going to have a major that will lead them to a six-figure income, not 40,000, six figures.
Right.
Even if it's entrepreneurship, if it's business, we choose the school where they will excel. For instance, I had a student this past year out of New York who wanted to go to Duke. He was a perfect fit. But in this last academic season, the whole admission season, everything got turned upside down. There's a lot of reasons for that. I'll spare you the details. But the reality is, this kid made 1B. He made 1B. And so he did not get into Duke. He's going to be a biomechanical engineer. He too wants to change the way diabetics monitor their blood sugar, how the insulin is injected, the whole nine yards. He didn't get into Duke, he got into Purdue.
Wow.
Purdue is number 6 in the country in engineering, and they work directly with companies like Abbott, bringing them to campus so that Abbott hires these kids straight out of school, and I assure you they start at 6 figures. What a blessing. And I told this young man all the way through, there is a bigger hand in what is going on here.
Right.
And you need to understand. And he was disappointed. And he's like, well, what about Brown? What about this? Why didn't I get in? I said, okay, let's look at the list of engineering schools by rank. Do you see Brown? I don't. I don't even see that shall not be named Duke right where we were looking.
Right.
But Purdue, that miraculously took you, is number 6 in the country and is going to put you right where you need to be. I pray over these students, and I know that the Holy Spirit is directing every path. Why does that matter? Why does it matter that you let them choose where they go? Because God has predestined the outcome for them. I watch the miracles every single day. At
Right.
those schools is their future life's partner, is a professor that's going to see how brilliant they are and publish them doing research with them. There's somebody there that is going to change their life. And that is why it matters that we let the process happen.
So let me ask you this question because one thing that I was thinking about my girls, one of my daughters has excellent grades, one of them does not have excellent grades. So, what about the child who doesn't have great grades and maybe they're just going to score average on ACTs or SATs? Like, how could you help that family?
Well, first of all, a lot of schools are still not wanting test scores. Some are demanding them again. Ironically, it's the state schools that are demanding them, not the privates. And it is a fallacy that state schools are cheaper than private schools. I have a spreadsheet where I can show you difference. The reality is there are 3,286, I think, is the number colleges and universities in this country. There is a school for every child that they will be so thrilled to have your child, they should give them money. If the income isn't there, they're going to give the money. I have a girl going to a small school in North Carolina, and she's going to be on a flag football scholarship. Who knew?
Who
Right?
knew?
Yay. So there is a place for every child. And I'm so glad you asked this. I was working a few years ago with a single parent mixed race family. She had a single son. He had gone to a school near here. I'm outside of Nashville for a year. We were at church. She ran across the room and said, "You said Florida, didn't you? My son wants to go to Florida, and I heard you say Florida." Guys, I never said Florida.
Mm.
The Holy Spirit put that word in her ear. And I said, well, I never said Florida. And the people I was sitting with were like, no, she never said Florida. But I said, I do help kids go to college. And
Mm.
she said, oh my goodness, he wants to be in broadcast journalism. He wants to be on ESPN. He's amazing. He can do this. And I said, well, I'd love to meet with you. And so I met with them the next night. I had pulled up a list of 10 schools that were excellent in broadcast journalism that met his academic profile. I prayed over this list and I said, Lord, give me this school. I am not kidding you. Kansas State jumped off the paper into my face. I called K State and I said, this is who I am. This is what I do. Do you by any chance have any room left for transfer students? Because it was after the deadline. And they said, we do. I said, do you by any chance have money for a transfer student? And she said, you know what? We have a special transfer scholarship for a shining star, but we didn't have one, so we didn't use it this year. I said, I have your shining star. Within 24 hours, this young man submitted his application, submitted his personal essay through an email, and was awarded that scholarship and went on to, and that wasn't enough for them. So I called and advocated. By the end of the conversation with the director of financial aid, they owed him money.
Oh my goodness.
He started laughing, and because I know where the money is. I know that there are discretionary funds and there's a lot of money hidden at schools if you know how to ask the questions. So this guy, he's like, well, I think we owe him $1.39. And I said, you can keep it. But long story short, he graduated 3 years later. He was the only student as a sophomore to ever go to London to work with the BBC in broadcasting as a sophomore. He graduated, he immediately went to one of not top tier markets, but just right under that. Nobody does that right out of school. And he is the sports anchor right outside of Philly.
Wow.
You can't make this stuff up, you guys. There's a school and there's money for every child in the families that hear this.
Wow.
All you have to do is get the help they need to find it.
Well, and I think that's what's so special about what you do, because not only do you have a calling on your life that breaks these generational strongholds, but also it helps children paint the vision that
Right.
is critical, and especially at that age to step forward. I am so honored and humbled to have you on this episode today. I'm going to include all of your information for the parents who are going to, I know they're going to want to work with you to help their kids get into college and the right Holy Spirit led college that is going to be perfect for them. So, in closing, what would be the biggest piece of encouragement that you could share for a parent that is like, how do we move forward with this?
Right. So, and if you could see me, you could see I'm very emotional right now because it matters. And it is what I am passionate about. And it is what we as parents should all be passionate about, giving our children a future that is different than their past and finding the right place and the money. It's there. You can always there's a tool online from the College Board called Big Future. That's a great place to start, bigfuture.org. And you can put in parameters and see what's out there. But if you want to reach out to me, if you go to my website, amazingjourneycollegecounseling.com, there is a free gift for you. When you download that, I will be notified and I will send you an email on how we can reach out and just have a conversation. No obligation, no charge. I just want to help you get started. And that's my gift to you.
I love that. Well, Cindy, I'm super thankful that you said yes to being on this episode today. I'm so excited for our audience to connect with you, get to know you, and find that special place that their child can go to college, attend college, and literally rewrite their future. So thank you for being on today's episode today.
Well, it has been my honor and privilege. I am so humbled to get to have this conversation. I just want to say in closing that parents, each and every one of you are heroes. You're my heroes because you keep them safe and you give them a future. And that's the greatest gift we ever give our children.
Amen. Hey friend, I hope that you loved today's episode. I pray it blessed you and helped you see that you have a friend in your corner who truly understands what you're walking through. If so, would you share this episode with someone who's been praying for a breakthrough in their own journey? It would also bless me big time and help others to find this podcast if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also submit your questions, topics that you would like covered, and find a community of like-minded mamas in my private Facebook group by searching What to Expect While Fostering and Adopting on Facebook. See you next time.